Hey, I'm Sheena Shuey. I'm a registered social worker and host of the 4Q podcast. I'm passionate about normalising, not pathologising life, and that's not easy. So each episode, I have amazing guests on to share the messy, beautiful ups and downs of life in 4 key questions with tips and tricks along the way. There are moments in life where you can embrace your story and understand that it's okay not to feel okay sometimes. So let's get into it. This is the 4Q podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the 4Q podcast. I'm so happy that you're here for another episode of what I hope will be something enlightening and actionable. So today we're talking about how living out of alignment can really increase the symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, and just generally make life a little bit more difficult. I share this because personally, it's been a hard week for me. It's been, and we all have good weeks, good months. We also all have those moments in life where we have bad weeks and bad months. And, I, as a reflective person and practicing what I preach, I took some time to reflect, and there are 2 ways that I talk about alignment, and I was out of alignment in the first way, which I'm going to share with you. So the first way that you can be living a life that's out of alignment really depends on going back a little bit and understanding some really key concepts. So rewind and let's go back in human history. Now, human history, we were hunters and gatherers. We lived in tribes. We ended up having the agricultural revolution and then the industrial revolution. And now here we are in the modern revolution, the technological revolution. But both in the hunter-gatherer time, in the agricultural times, even though in the agricultural times there started to be a shift, things really changed in the industrial times and the technological times, which I'll get to. But those 2 last histories is when capitalism really stepped up a notch. But in previous history, so before, let's say, the 1800s, from the 1700s prior to that, we lived a lifestyle where we didn't work anywhere near as much as we do now. We had so much support in terms of friends and family. So we didn't need monetary support. We didn't need huge sums of money coming in because we grew our own fruits and vegetables. We spent a lot of time outdoors. There was a lot of outdoor activity, whether you were a woman or a man, whatever. Back then, the roles were still very outdoors, minimal time indoors, obviously, except for during colder climates. People in colder climates would be inside. But the way of living was you were surrounded by friends and family constantly. So men who would be working would be surrounded by, the husbands of the village or their brothers, their uncles. Many of them would all be working together during the day, but not all day like we do now, like the whole 9 to 5 thing. It was literally get up early and then finish around early afternoon before a siesta before you would have a nap. You would come home, have lunch, drink wine, drink alcohol, and this is cross-culturally. I'm talking Japan, I'm talking the Mediterranean, I'm talking Scandinavian countries. Globally, these sorts of practices would happen. So men would be at work doing that kind of work, come home, spend time with family, have a rest, and then really celebrate, cook together, do rituals in the evening, whether it was prayer, whether it was celebrating the moon, whether it was celebrating the harvest. But all the kids were constantly playing with each other, which meant there was less pressure on the parents to take care of them, entertain them constantly. And kids entertain themselves too because they helped out. They were automatically given chores. It wasn't an option. We didn't have to have the Montessori method because they had that already. And so while men were at work, women were the same. They were making flour, making olive oil, making the meats from scratch, cooking, etc. They had the children, but then again, remembering these women would have their friends, their aunties, their sisters, their cousins all around. So that burden of just being at home with the kids all day was nothing like what we experience now. So just summarizing what we've spoken about so far, we would have time with friends and family, support. We had our own fresh fruits and vegetables and own food. So we weren't reliant on other people for food or vegetables. We weren't reliant on others for emotional support or support with the children. Even if you were having trouble with your husband or your wife or whatever, you had so much friends and family around, so you had support there. You also had daily rituals in the form of prayers and, again, celebrating the moon, celebrating harvests, having spiritual rituals back then too. So life was very different. And again, spending out a lot of time outdoors and, being nomadic at times and sort of wandering around. So that was the lifestyle that our genetics had evolved to for hundreds of thousands of years, and not hundreds of thousands, hundreds and thousands of years. And so that was the lifestyle that we led. And of course, throughout every part of history, there's been war, there's been famine, there's been unexpected things. But majority, that is what we have evolved to. And so it wasn't until later in history, when we had the Industrial Revolution, where instead of relying on natural sources for support, we worked a job. So we maybe had a nicer house and all of that, but now we had to buy our fruits and vegetables. Now we didn't have time to be around friends and family. We were in massive factories that had hundreds, if not thousands of people in them. So they weren't our close bonded people, and there was such pressure to get stuff done that there wasn't necessarily the socializing and the connection that goes on. And so not only did people stop having time for friends and family like they used to, they lost their spiritual things, their ritual things, they lost their connection with the land. They were no longer in natural environments. And it was all about profit. Now we had a shift about happiness and philosophy and art and all of those things into money, 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 and technology. So just to give a bit of a landscape, that is how we've evolved as humans. But it's only been the last kind of 200, 300 years that we've really been having this shift towards profit and industrialization. And when it comes back to my experience recently of just really feeling off and looking at our DNA and how it is evolved, I have not been spending much time outdoors. I have not been socializing very much with my friends and family because I have been industrialized and I have been at work. I've been working a lot. I've been spending a lot of time with my son, but without support like we used to have. And so you can see how I'm not in alignment in that way. If you're not in alignment that you're spending time with friends and family, you're connected to the land, you're connected to your food, you're connected to rituals, you're connected to friends and family, and having that almost daily emotional support. And that's almost unrealistic now, unfortunately. But not having that support, both emotionally, physically, financially, if you were struggling in those earlier times, you could tap out. There were so many people who could help with the running of your household. If you have to tap out now, who do you have? I bet you it's maybe one or two people, and they're likely your parents if they're still alive. And if you don't have them, it's tricky. So for many of us, I always try to give this premise that so many of us are living out of alignment, but if we can do things like create our own rituals, create things around making sure we're connected to the land, getting outside in nature, spending time with friends and family when we can, all of those things really connect us again in that alignment. So I want you to thinking about traditional times, your ancestors and how they live. How could you incorporate that more? If you're lucky enough to be someone who works for yourself, can you have a long and lazy lunch where you spend it with a loved one, maybe having a glass of wine or something? If you can't do that during the week, can you do that on the weekends? What things can you implement to start really getting back to that? Can you start a veggie patch? Can you connect? Can you get outdoors more? Whatever it is, finding those ways. And now the second way that we can live out of alignment, and I've spoken about this before, but that's just really being out of alignment with your values. So if you work with me at any stage, whether it's been in my courses, my events, my retreats, my one-on-one coaching, or if even just listening to this podcast, I'm sure you would have heard me talk about core values. And this basically comes down to, what do you value in life? What kind of person do you want to be? What are the beliefs that you have? And what do you stand for? So that when push comes to shove and you have to make decisions in life, you know what kind of legacy you want to live and what kind of person you want to be and what's important to you. So core values make you very clear on that. And so the one area I am aligned in is that practice. I always check in with myself. What are my values and how can I incorporate them into my day? I'm very clear about the rules around them. And so those are the two ways that if you're feeling off and stressed, it could be a misalignment issue. Either that your lifestyle is not matching your genetics, which I can tell you is 95% of people in this industrialized and technological age now. In the Western world, it's that high. So many of us aren't in alignment, but some of us are out of more alignment than others. And so, again, thinking back to, if I'm feeling stressed, anxious, depressed, what's one thing I can reincorporate, whether that's time in nature, time with my friends and family, slowing down, having longer lunches, having more rituals in my life, getting back to beliefs and, routines. What could I do? Or it could be that you just don't know your core values, or you are not clear on what your belief system is and what do you stand for? Like, what is important to you and what you'll not tolerate, regardless of how hard it is, Those are the things that when when you're off, there's a good chance there's misalignment there. So, of course, I've given you some strategies for the first misalignment. For the second misalignment around your core values, it really is just getting clear about them again. Doing a visualization or thinking about when you look back at your life and the legacy you want to live, what do you want people to say about you? Or what do you want to be able to say about yourself? Like, hey, I can say that I lived a life full of love, or I chose freedom, or I chose, vitality or integrity. I can put hand on heart, I can go to bed every night knowing I said that, I live that, regardless of what others say. And of course, we all have our moments where we live out of our values, but if you can think about what's important to you and how you can incorporate that in your everyday, that's going to be really important. And of course, you know where I am if you need help with that. You know, whether it's my online courses, whether it's working one-on-one with me, you know, there's so many ways that we can work together so that you can figure out your core values. So please try to check that out as well. And again, I just want to remind anyone out there who's had a big time, having a rough month or even a rough year, just like I am. I'm having a rough week at the moment. I just want you to remember that it's okay. Like, we all have these seasons of life where it's harder than others. But I think keeping a mindset of this will pass and it's just a phase and it's not forever. And there's actionable things that you can do that may not solve it overnight, but definitely can solve any feelings of stress, anxiety, depression, and burnout over time if you commit to it. And of course, if you get support from people like myself or other coaches or, you know, support systems out there. So have a wonderful week, wonderful day. I cannot wait to speak with you and see you again. Thank you for giving this time to me, but most importantly, thank you for giving this time to yourself. All right, I'll see you at the next episode of the 4Q podcast.